everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday nights, as always, we are here right on time. Actually, we're not always right on time, but we are definitely on time this time. And we are live. The trio is back in action. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin here in Chicago, where we had our last nice day of weather before we go rain nonstop over here. But traveling the world and getting his butt checked out in his background is Paul Bickler. That has to be the best background I think we have ever had.
It is, as Mr. Bob would say, it's a happy accident. I could not find my black backdrop, but I could find this somehow saved in my JPEGs. No idea why, but I'm not going to ask that question tonight.
First of all, we all know the answer to that question. You tried to create some crazy ass meme with that guy looking at you and his girlfriend being pissed, like all the other memes we've seen with those two in the background. And then somehow it's just you getting bum rushed, literally, in some random ass city.
I think this is left over from COVID, because I did go a run where, when we went out of office and we went to Zoom for the first time, I did this run of having ridiculous backdrops every single meeting because they forced us to go on camera. So I think this is left over from that. If I had to take a shot,
where in the world is Paul Bickler? The world wants to know.
Question.
I am outside of sunny West Palm Beach for the next couple days, and then I'll be traveling over to the other side of the state to work out of my dad's office for a couple days. He's going to take him to the airport on Saturday. I'm going to fly out back to North Carolina right behind him.
So this is like a vacation, or this is like a work trip you're doing over there?
This is a work trip. I don't get vacations, but yeah.
You don't get that. You're always traveling, man.
He's forced to take vacations, but it's usually times to take care of three heathens. So he doesn't really have vacations.
Right. No, these traveling things are me going and sitting in an office for 10 hours a day. And then seeing I don't know, my company sends me to these things. They must trust me with clients. They haven't seen anything on a expense report that surprised them yet. But I think they probably you guys know how transparent I am. I think they know what they're in for.
Well, you were live on the morning show we were doing this morning, and once they see those airport beers, that could change very radically and very fast over here. Ed Galley is with us from his regular black wall with nobody checking him out. What's going on?
Yeah, nobody behind me. Trust me, my wife is downstairs. She doesn't check me out anymore. That's how you know we've been married long enough. I'm just sitting here in Western Massachusetts. Weather's been beautiful, I gotta admit. It was an awesome weekend. Went to a brew festival on Saturday afternoon. Went out with the dog on Sunday. Watched a little bit of the Champions League final, as piss poor of a match as that was for the neutral viewer. But all in all, weather's good. I'm hoping it's going to stay that way. But when you get rain, it usually means I got 72 hours, and that shit's rolling up north to me next. So it's probably coming for 4 or 5 days.
It's 3 days nonstop, from what I understand.
Can't wait.
But rain. No soccer for the most part. I did not get to watch the Champions League. I was actually at Gordo's signing Finn to a long-term contract as he turned 3 over there. So attending the birthday party, and the game was going to be on, but honestly, I was like, do I even care? And not really. I just watched the kind of the extended highlights afterwards and stuff like that. But is this is still continuing the nice break, Paul? Because it's almost been more eventless than we actually had thought when we talked about it maybe 2 weeks ago or so.
Oh, yeah. I don't do friendlies, and I've been off social media. I got on once today, and it was a Coutinho rumor, and I was immediately like, I can't do it. I'm off.
Yes, I mean, you guys know that I despise this time of year, and it's very, very... And just, if you think Liverpool is bad, just be a Fenerbahce fan. And when they signed Mourinho over there, I think anybody and everybody who has ever played for Mourinho, and, a lot of players have, is linked to Fenerbahce now. So good times.
I hope they get Juan Mata.
So, I want to be fair here. Well, first of all, there's a guarantee you're going to get Juan Mata. He's played for him literally 18 times. And then he played on when Juan Mata was in juniors, youth academy. He was an 8-year-old kid. I think Mourinho was the training captain of the team. But I have to ask you, and I wasn't going to let it go much further into this before I ask you, what is seeing that your grandfather is a legend of the club. And we're not making that up, people. That is real. We've talked about it many times here. He is up on the wall. We see him, one of the great players in the club's history. As like someone, you and your brother who grew up loving this club, do podcasts about this club. Are you excited for the idea that if it works, it could be great for you and could bring you back? And this guy wants it? Because that's how it would be, honestly.
You would be, you said, or you wouldn't be?
I think I would be. I would be that way, but I'm a maniacal fan who likes it when other people hate me. So like I totally get it as I, my shtick on this show. He is the bad guy, right? Like he is the Darth Vader of football, in my opinion. Like Jose Mourinho is kind of like the guy that the neutral doesn't always love, but might respect.
Yeah, I think.
What are you as the supporter in this case?
See, I think he's one of those guys. I've never, and I think like we talked about it in the shows before, I've never felt that way against him. I think he comes across like that because he does think he is the special one and he thinks highly of himself. He has a huge ego to him. So I think he comes across like that. And he probably comes across like that to some of the players as well, because he sees himself above all else. I mean, they just did like an unveiling of him signing the contract in front of like 10,000 fans and stuff like that. And he was just eating it up. And he knows what to say. He knows how to play the crowd. I mean, it's all over the internet's because obviously one of the few actually official things happening these days, it feels like. I know Mbappe became official today, but over this past week, it was one of the few big things that are actually making official. Yeah. I'm all for it because it's what the club needs. It's kind of like what the league needs. But I don't give a damn about the league. It's more about what the club needs. You need somebody you need somebody like Mourinho. The current guy is like too nice of a guy, ex-player. So like not on the same caliber, but the current guy is more like, like if Stevie was coach, he's not going to go out there and like trash the media or talk down and stuff like that. Whereas if they tried, I mean, they already did. Today he had a press conference and he was already talking shit about some of the questions and stuff like that with players. He's going to be over there. He's not going to care. There's that little, I find it to be common in Portuguese, actually. Like there's a little Portuguese arrogance that goes with those managers. And I think that's exactly what's needed. So I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a good move. And not to mention, I was talking about it this morning. I think when you go to a league like the Turkish league or the Greek league and stuff like that, obviously you can still be in Europe. So you're kind of like, probably in your latter stages of your career, but it's not like going to Saudi Arabia where you're totally on paper selling out, right? And I think the optics are a lot better when not only you're going to the Turkish league, but you're saying, I'm going to go play with Mourinho, play for Mourinho and stuff like that. So it probably looks a lot better. That's not, obviously, even Mourinho himself is there for the money. Everybody's going for the money. But I think optics-wise, he can bring some players to the project. So that's a good deal.
I also think he sees this as an opportunity to take a big club back to like a top level, get him back to the Champions League, win a league. And it might spurn him to get one more job at another bigger club in Europe. Because let's be honest, Jose Mourinho is always thinking about his next job. He was thinking about his next job when he was at Chelsea. Then he went to Madrid and he thought about going back to Chelsea. And he did. And then he was thinking about United and Spurs and Roma. And I mean, he knows what he's doing. So I love that part. I will say there might not be a better line ever by a guy broken in translation than when he told the Fenerbahce supporters that your jersey is now my skin.
Yes,
and that line literally, that is some old, dried out, stretched out, bad tattooed skin. But you should be proud because he is wearing your jersey as his skin. And when he said it, I looked at the thing and I was like, but if I was a supporter of that club, I would love this right now.
Oh, David, like I say, he knows, and they were eating it up. And I'll show you right here. It is already being sold at all Fenerbahce retail stores. As this shirt is literally this is from the Fenerbahce website.
I was kidding.
I don't know if it's official. It's not an official account, but it looks so official that I'm sure there will be some stuff. That's another thing. He's a huge attraction. You know how it is. So money-wise, I think number one, money wise, there's a lot more people that are going to be interested. I mean, let's look at you guys. I mean, you guys would never be interested in Turkish league if it wasn't for me. But now that Mourinho's there, it might be a thing to say like, what is he doing over there, and check a score, whereas normally you would not care.
Yes, absolutely. No, this makes me want to figure out what channel or what streaming service I need to watch the Turkish league. Like that, this I'm serious, because there'll be some matches, and honestly, I almost want to know what streaming service do I need to hear Fenerbahce press conferences. And honestly, I just need to probably listen to your goddamn podcast in a language I don't understand. So as long as I can get some translator Google shit to work, I'll be good. But the guy is a walking, talking soundbite.
Oh yeah.
And he's good for the sport. And that's the thing that I always hate it when people hate it on him. Like, he's good for the sport. You need villains in this sport. And he is maybe the most likable villain I can remember in football in a long, long time. Everyone loves Carlo Ancelotti, but like, he's never going to be a villain, even if you hate him. He just isn't. He's a good guy. He comes across like this je ne sais quoi Italian man that everybody loves. Like, Mourinho is everything but that.
Mourinho is just grew from the Minions with hair.
Yes.
I think, that's a good point, though. Like, do you want the fact that I like, and that's why I say, he's the kind of manager the club needs, because of all the drama that happens in the Turkish league and the politics and stuff like that involved. You need somebody who's going to be a villain and take it for the entire team and shield the team from everything else that's happening outside. The current manager is too nice of a guy to be able to do that. I feel like you sometimes need that. Like we talk about, look, if a manager is not liked by the opponents, like Arteta and stuff like that, usually it means they're probably doing pretty well for their own team. And they're loved. I mean, Arteta is maybe an exception, because I know there were Arteta outshouts just like 8 months ago or whatever. But I think, it's a good sign when your manager is not as likable. I mean, I know what you guys think about Klopp, for example. We love Klopp, but I know a lot of other fans did not find him that lovable and likable, and found him to be, we feel like he's very genuine stuff, but more like they were like, oh, he's faking it, his laugh and stuff like that. So, I mean, do you want your manager to be that shield, Bickler? This kind of brings that, like, if and when Arne talks, do you want him to be that shield kind of guy, or do you want him to be more bubbly, friendly, joking guy?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I care that much. It's probably not a good answer, but like, I just care about winning, and I care about the players being motivated to play for the manager, right? So I think there's some legitimate credence to Jose essentially making it about him and that about his team, and that sometimes taking the heat off of the team. But I also think Jose can put a target on somebody and throw him under the bus in a minute, in the way a manager like Jurgen would never do. So I think I think that like with Jose, he can basically you can get blackballed in a hurry. And I think he tends to rule with a little bit more fear than I personally like in a manager. I mean, this goes back to being, I just think he's, at the end of the day, he's very Portuguese, like you said. And I think that's kind of, they run very hot like that. So there's some good stuff to it both. I mean, I think the thing with Jose is that he's just a tactical mastermind, no matter how you put it. I don't like football, but tactically he's a genius.
And I think, here's the thing. You do want that. I agree. And that's why I think a lot of people say his style does not translate to the younger player and the new generation and stuff like that, Gally. And I think that's, that might be partially true, because I think maybe in some ways he's a bit more old school and too honest and stuff like that at times. And he's going to tell you how it is, and it's his way or the highway, because he's the special one. It's like a different approach that he has. But at the same time, don't you think some of these players, even though they have huge egos, they don't want that ego? Like, wouldn't Nunez want a guy like that to tell people off so that he doesn't even care about turning off his social media because, Mourinho's going off on somebody on the press conference?
I think you're right. And I think you made a good point there. Like Paul and you were going at it from different directions, but Paul talked about how the young players disconnect to him. And please don't take this as a shot. It's why I think it's even more of a smart hire in Turkey, because you are signing a lot of players who aren't done with their careers. Let's not call this a retirement league. It's a good league. There's good players in that league. But it's not like you're signing the 20-year-olds across Europe that are the highest talents. You're signing players sometimes in their late 20s, early 30s, still wanting to hang on to Europe. I almost feel
they've
like
done a good balance lately. I think, in the past, you're right. You were like 29 and over league, kind of an ordeal. I think now, since financially it's not sustainable, they've gotten a couple of roll the dice guys. Like they got, Kim, for example, that they sold afterwards for a lot of money, Attila Salai, Arda Güler and stuff like that. And then, they've gotten like Szymanski and stuff like that. They feel like they can turn around and sell, but it's usually, yes, like you're not good enough for that league, but you still got some like gas left in the tank kind of guys.
And for that, I think he's like the perfect manager for that, because they're veteran players who understand.
Yeah.
More veteran, more mature. Let's not even say veteran, because they might be 26, but they've played in Europe for 8 or 10 years. They're a Zaniolo type player, and they flamed out in Italy, and they found their way to Turkey, and they find their form, and they really like it there. Like, there's great players in the league, and we've seen players come in. Dusan Tadic was there for a period in that league, doing really well, and then went back to other European leagues.
No, he's still there. He plays for Fenerbahce.
Oh, he is still at Fenerbahce.
Yeah,
I thought he had left again.
Season. No, that was like last year was his first season, actually.
Gotcha. So I missed that one up. But my point is, I think those are the type of players. And I think a guy like that, a guy like Dusan Tadic, is the type of guy Mourinho wished he had at United. A guy who would lead and play hard and teach young players how to play better. And I actually think it's like a perfect mix. And it will probably be a perfect mix for like 18 to 24 months.
Yes.
Because that's about when Mourinho's, Molotov cocktail goes off, no matter what city he's in. And he drops that glass bottle and shit just lights on fire in the middle of the street. And then before you know it, 3 towns over are on fire. But he's still sitting up on like some high ass hill telling everyone, I started this fire. I will watch it burn. And if you pay me enough, I will get the people to come put this fire out.
I think that's the biggest concern.
I think that's why you will love him and hate him. And his time at the club
thanks a lot, Gally. I just watched Dimitri have a heart attack.
No, I can just like see him like do really well, and but I worry about the aftermath where you can see Mourinho like it's almost like a movie scene. He's walking away from like the buildings, and things are blowing up in the background and stuff. That's what
the world is ending. The world's ending behind him, and he's up on a hill like this.
He's still waving
just like a great Roman Empire, like just coming to the ground.
But let's get to our boys. So it's not a Mourinho podcast this week. Obviously, you can tell that we go off on tangents because we're kind of like in a wait and see mode. Really, not a lot has changed since last week. One of the topics I wanted to touch up on, because we don't know who's going to be incoming and stuff like that. I think our guess of something happening before the Euros is about to go down the drain over here pretty soon. We'll talk about the Euros a little bit too. But Sepp, I mean, when we come to players that we expect to leave, aside from the ones that obviously the contract is, I guess let's start with you on this one, Bickler. For like Sepp's statements in terms of, once we put the price tag on him of 20 million, which is a very Edwards-like number, mind you, you put the 20 million tag and he kind of like comes out and obviously he's not too thrilled about it. I'm actually more shocked because I felt like all these guys that we loaned out, like maybe a Sepp, maybe a Carvalho, Morton and stuff like that, all these guys would be more excited about coming back, knowing they're starting from zero now and they're not trying to maybe fit in a system that they even felt like they never fit and stuff like that. Are you shocked that he kind of like came out with that? Or do you think he's already been told, yeah, by the way, Arne doesn't like you either?
I was shocked just because I thought like, hey, you're getting a Dutch manager and a Dutch manager has a ton of experience with younger players from that league. I thought if I'm set, this is probably like my shot to get my foot in the door here. At least thought he'd be interested in seeing how this happened. Now, to your second part of that question, it makes me think that there's already been a conversation with his agent and the club. And it sounds like it did not go great. The other part of this is I don't think he wants to be Nat Phillips and 28 years old and looking at another loan. Like he wants to go play starting football somewhere that he can. And to all these players, like there has to be something to be said about like landing somewhere where you can officially unpack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's got to be mentally and physically exhausting to be essentially living out of a backpack through multiple loans. So can't blame him. Am shocked because of the timing.
How about you, Gally? Like I said, I understand his frustration, and I get that part with Nat Phillips and stuff like that. I just felt like, this is a brand new opportunity for these guys, but maybe a lot of the guys have already been told, you're in the plans, you're not in the plans. Because we talked about this before Arnie even probably got the job. A lot of like current squad decisions were discussed with him.
Yeah, I don't want to assume that he was told he isn't part of this club going forward or any of that stuff because I don't know, right? And that's just guessing for guessing's sake. What I'll say is this, and it's going to sound really harsh on the young man who I always was really high on and wanted to see him get a shot. Like he never had a shot. He never got to play a match where he played along a senior center back and played at center back. The few times he got preseason runouts, it was all youth teams, and he was playing at right back at one point. Like, I don't think Klopp ever rated him. I think they bought him for a price for the future, and I don't think Klopp ever liked him. I think it was like, he's got to go on loan. He's got to go on loan. We needed center backs last year. He didn't even consider him. He had played the whole year in the Bundesliga as one of the top defenders in their league.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Last year was the championship before he went back because he was at Preston last year and had a great year before he went back. Or Ipswich or wherever the hell he was. I think to Paul's point, he does want to find a home and wants to like launch his career. And I also, and this is like the critical galley in me, I think he deep down inside knows he isn't Liverpool's level. I think he knows they bought a kid they thought would be the next Virgil van Dijk because he was Dutch and tall. And he turned out to be like a serviceable German center back who's good, but I don't think he's ever playing for Liverpool. So I think this is him firing off in a way of almost like, I know I have no future with this club, but I want out, and I think 20 million is an absolute joke. And I agree with it. The price should be 10 to 15. And you know what? That's what Edwards going to sell him for.
Yeah.
But you don't start negotiations at 10 to 15 or they offer you 7. So just shut your mouth, to be honest, because if anything, it's been proven. If you fuck with Edwards, it doesn't usually end well for you because the dude has buried people in like the junior ranks and kept people on the roster for years. Yeah. Until they sell. And when they do sell, he sells them for the profit and the price he wants. Because if he doesn't get the price he wants, he's willing to pay their salary. So I think this is a kid who made a real bad mistake, to be honest. And I bet his agent wishes he didn't say the words he did.
Yeah, I mean, Cersei says he's seen Kwanzaa come in and take over Konata. I don't think Sepp fancies the challenge. And that could be part of it. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to. Or, I mean, it could be a combination, Bickler, of what you said and what Gally said, where he does want to unpack, and he knows that is not going to happen there for 3-4 years. So at least, send me somewhere. But why would you? I guess I don't understand why you would fight your evaluation. I mean, you're not 5. You know how negotiations work. Why would you argue? And then wouldn't you be flattered by your evaluation?
I mean, it strikes me as an emotional reaction, which makes me think there was a conversation that was just had. That's why I say that. And like, I'm with Gally. I don't want to assume, but like, just based on that, like those comments don't come out unless there's something that's sitting pretty raw in your craw. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like something had to have just recently happened where he found out, where maybe he thought, oh, Arnie's coming in. I got a Dutch guy. I've got a shot to get in, get some minutes. And then they called him in and he was like, looking forward to this conversation. And they're like, no, dog, going out on a loan. And he was like, maybe that was the conversation. I don't know. But it just seems to me based on that comment, because like Gally said, like that doesn't make logistical sense. Like you don't make comments like that and better your brand as a footballer. Like nobody ever looks good coming out of that conversation like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like just,
Yeah.
they're like 20. I don't think anybody's gonna give 20 for me, but we'll wait and see is what you should be just doing. And then be like,
Basically,
hey,
was like
20, huh? Not too
he was
shabby.
basically like, "Hey, championship clubs, I'm available for 8 million. Look how good I am." Like you're in the top flight of Germany, playing for clubs and there's other clubs that want you. I would think you would be like, yeah, I don't know if the evaluation is right based on my play, but I think I'm worth 30 or 40 million. So the team that gets me is going to get a real bargain no matter what they pay. Like, isn't that the easy way to say I don't want to be at Liverpool and someone come and get me? But instead, he's almost saying like, they've never believed in me and they're holding me back, and that evaluation just shows that they don't know what they're talking about. Like basically you're under, to your point, you're undervaluing yourself. And it's almost like as a professional in any walk of life, it would be like walking into your boss and being like, I know you want to give me a raise, but hey, 3% sounds better than 9%, because what are they going to expect from me if you give me 9% raise? And I'm basically talking to my boss right now. Give me a fucking 9% raise.
I'll do whatever it takes. Give me 9%. I guess my thing is, I understand. It sounds bitter, I guess, to me, Bickler, more than anything else. It sounds bitter. Like, he's more like worried about, what are you worried about how much Liverpool's going to make off of you if you are going to be able to unpack and like go somewhere, right? Unless he thinks it's going to affect his wages or something. If they obviously pay too much, then it's going to wager. I almost feel more like these guys got me. I never really got a fair share. And now they're going to try to bank off of me. Kind of like a petty bitterness is what it comes across as. It might not be, but that's how I perceive it, at least.
Look, I think it was a mistake, right? I think it was a mistake, but there is a part of me that empathizes with that. When you come from a league and you are considered a young and up and coming talent, you get perpetually loaned out. You go and just he's absolutely slated at every stop.
2 years in a row.
Great wherever he's been. And he had a horrific injury he had to come back from too. So, I mean, this has not been easy sledding for a dude who came out of the Dutch league and probably thought, hey, I'm 2 to 3 years away from cracking a first team at the best club in the world. And like, I think it's been an unexpected journey for him. And I do empathize with that. I empathize with the fact that he's been potentially like just perpetually loaned out, big injury, not had a crack at it, because I'm with Gally. Like he's been used in more attacking roles out wide lately in loans, but like he looks so good with the ball at his feet, and he's got the size. If he can fill out, he's got the size. So it'll be really interesting. I would have loved to see him get more of a crack. It is a weird. I mean, this is why we're talking about it, right? It was shocking. I mean, let's just call it what it was. Yeah. It was shocking to see a young player come out and say that at this juncture of the window.
At this club.
Yeah, I understand that he didn't get like a lot of opportunities and stuff like that, but you gotta figure, I mean, we're only seeing him in those opportunities, but he's being watched every single freaking day in terms of maybe, like not what he does, but how he does it in terms of practicing and stuff like that, or how he tries to improve what he works on and all that kind of stuff too. So obviously they're looking at a lot more of a sample size. We're only looking at the sample size when we get to see him. But so I can see that. So as he says, I think he knows the bigger European clubs won't come in for him and the lower clubs can't afford it. But like I say, that's a starting point. He has to know he's not 5. Like I said, I mean, he has to know this is how negotiations work. If you ask 15, somebody's going to come in at 10. If you ask 20, they're going to come in at 15. It's just like simple math, really. Let me ask you guys about this, though, because Brian Shelton says Carvalho is going the same direction, in my opinion. The thing with Carvalho is, and that's why I'll start with you on this one, Gally, in terms of, so he also talked smack at one point, right? In terms of, like before he got like loaned out to like Hull City and stuff like that after he went to Leipzig, which didn't pan out well. Do you think he gets a total clean slate now with maybe a system that fits him more? Or has that scarred his resume where they're like, this guy can get this attitude when things don't go his way? We don't want any part of that.
So I'll try to make it quick. It's 2-parter. One, I think he does get a clean slate because unfortunately to Sepp, Carvalho has a much higher ceiling, and we've seen more of him at a top flight level showing skill sets that could translate to a much bigger upside. And we know there is a talent there. 2, I don't believe the club ever had an issue with Carvalho. I absolutely believe Jurgen Klopp had an issue with Carvalho. And I think those comments were directed at Jurgen Klopp, not at the club. Because I think Jurgen Klopp never tried to find a way to make Carvalho fit, because I think Carvalho was a club signing and not a Klopp signing. He said all the right things, never did any of the things to make the kid succeed. And I think this manager is the opposite of that. From what I've heard about this manager, he tries to figure out ways to fit players into his system, like he did the Jimenez guy that he made a class player after being a dubbed failure at other clubs. I think he's done other things with players in similar situations. And I think the fact that he plays with a true number 10 allows you to see a route into the first team for this kid. He has too much talent, in my opinion, to not bring him in 100% fully into the fold and try to integrate him into this side for this campaign. If he fails in the preseason, he gets loaned again. It's a loan to find a place to sell him permanently. I will raise my hand and agree to that. But I think Carvalho, I'll disagree with Brian Shelton here. I think Carvalho is not, Ben Woodburn or any of these other young players that have come up and done things at the club. I think Carvalho has unique talents to be a top level player, needs the right manager and right system. Klopp was neither of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think the current system, what we assume the current system will be based on past systems, probably fits him a lot better, Bickler, in terms of his play style, where we can utilize him in the 4-2-3-1 and stuff. I mean, I remember talking over here that when we signed them and then we made all those signings that summer, we're like, oh, we must be switching to 4-2-3-1 or something. We talked about it for months. This is why it's not good to assume over summer. But at the same time, the fact that, and I agree with Gally, it was like the club and it was not necessarily the club. But when you have somebody who can take shots like that when things don't go his way, do you want that guy, bring the guy back in, knowing if things don't go well again, he's going to pull the same thing? And does it matter, you think, that the guys in charge now, can they be like, yeah, I know what you're saying about club, bro. That's why we left and came back. Does that make a difference there?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to hit on, is that I think the club versus Klopp signing is the reason that we eventually saw just essentially the entire sporting directing panel leave, right? And then come back, right? So I think the fact that the profile of the player didn't really change until until Ward left, right? So it's like that we acquired him under that regime. So it's not like I think it's probably genuinely a player that Edwards agrees we should have purchased, right? Yeah. So I think the biggest thing about him doesn't have anything to do with, anything other than the fact that he is now in a system that has a defined role that he can fit in. And I got to tell you, as much as I think Jurgen Klopp being rigid in terms of his system and the players that fit into it, in his sort of inflexibility and trying to really meld pieces into the system and sort of flex the system to meet the players' needs. We had a real issue with him never doing that. Carvalho is probably the one player that never had a chance because he doesn't have the size to play that midfield and he doesn't have the pace to play up top. So I think he just almost I almost give Klopp a free pass on that one. But the fact that this system now has a true 10 that plays just like he wants to play. If he doesn't make it now, I think it's a clear out eventually. But I do think because this system so clearly utilizes that role, I think he has to have a shot, and I think he gets it.
I think so. I mean, he'll have opportunities in that line and in that system, I think, to be able to get more playing time and do actually it's something like you're saying, Bickler. It suits him. It suits his skill sets. Brian says he's not at the level of Elliot Jones. We don't know. I honestly don't think we know, especially when it comes to, maybe Mecca and, Sabosla, you might have seen more of him, but I don't think you can right now say he can't do what Elliot or Jones did.
His 1 year in the Premier League, playing for Fulham with Silva as his manager and Mitrovic as a striker, he was just as good as Harvey Elliott has ever been in the Premier League. People forget how good he was and how excited we were when we signed him for the money we got him for. He was the young player of the year in England. He scored goals for a shit-ass team. He scored big goals, and he scored goals in the championship, which means he has the mettle to actually fight. And I think when he went to Germany, we all thought, oh, he goes to Leipzig. They represent good young players. They bring players along. It didn't work for him because he wanted to fit right in. He came right back the second half of the season, and he was a top 5 player in the championship and almost got a shitty Hull team into the playoff promotion. Like, he was their best player, and it wasn't even close. In the championship, a league where grown men kick little boys in the leg for a living. Like, I just think it gets overlooked how talented the footballer is. You know, I can come back to so many players. There have been so many players who have had disastrous loan spells in their career and then went on to having good careers. Harry Kane was a failure at Leicester. He's the greatest striker to ever play for England. It's not even close. Like, he had failures at Norwich. He had failures at Leicester. It takes sometimes a manager believing in you, putting you in position to succeed at a big club with other great players around you, and then you take it to a new level. And I
think with Kane,
I'm not
like,
saying
he was in England. He wasn't in that, he was in his own country. I feel like when you put like a young kid like that and throw him Portuguese kids at Germany, you're not really setting up for success. I think club-wise, maybe you set him up for success. It's a club that could maybe get more out of him. But
totally
yeah, I mean, that's a huge adjustment for a kid and expect him to do well at a loan spell. I don't know. I guess my only concern would be, like I say, is he going to do the same thing when things don't go his way? I always felt like, actually, I mean, we set him up to fail, kind of like when we did with Jones when we played him on the left wing. He's even like, he has less strength than Jones. So he looked terrible on that left wing. And this is why when we talked in the past, we talked about when we sold Coutinho, Klopp was the happiest guy because I find Carvalho more similar to Coutinho. And you can tell there's no freaking place in this team, in this current system for you. You can't play in midfield and you can't play on the left wing. So you can't do it. And I thought that's why, we even talked about it back then, that Klopp has to be the happiest guy, that he was able to convert that into big money to bring Van Dijk and Alisson and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting. I do agree that Carvalho will get his chance and get a good look to see if he fits that. The only thing is probably a lot of competition there, Bickler, in terms of that midfield. I mean, Shelton just threw out a bunch of names there. There's a lot more other guys. Where do you see some of these young guys ending up? Are they going to get lost in the system because we're going to sign more people too, similar to people like Morton, Bajcetic, players like that? Are they going to get like a fair shot? And would you even be comfortable if they're counted on as, the second tier, let's say?
I'll just say that I would say that most of those players that we loaned out this year, we're looking to move. I mean, that's typically what we do when we loan. We're looking to find them a home. We're looking to build value and go there.
Does the new manager change that for you?
No, because I mean, I like, we have this whole division of like the club and the manager, right? Where the manager is going to come in and manage the team. And then the club is really putting the structure in terms of like who they think they want to bet into the first team and working with the manager on that. I don't think it changes too much. Like I still have PTSD from seeing a picture of Galley next to Tyler Morton. So I just can't get on board with Tyler Morton ever being in starting 11, considering the fact that he's
completely fair. I still have the same issue myself, just so we're clear.
So you don't think, I mean, I guess that's my own thing. Normally, I totally agree. Like when we loan out, we kind of figured, yeah, this ain't going to work. Otherwise, you keep practicing over here next to, Bobby Clark and Dance and stuff like that. Though, if we're keeping those guys around practicing with us, we would have hung on to you as well. But I don't know, like to me, Gally, the change in manager almost gives that clean slate and a brand new opportunity. Maybe you're not as expendable anymore. Not to mention these guys were loaned out under the last regime, not only club wise, but in terms of like, Edwards was not there.
That's the biggest key for me. The only reason I will give the Tyler Mortons, he's grown a lot, let me tell you. He's at least 2 inches taller than me
Let's
now,
freaking hope so.
which means he's only just this much too small. But no, I think the fact that for me it's more important that there's new leadership in place than there is a new manager in place. Because I think with the old leadership and the current manager, shit wasn't going to change. Tyler Morton still isn't good enough. Like, Ramsey's still not my guy. Like, send him back out. Like, I'm good. New manager and new leadership might see different value, especially for guys like Tyler Morton and the kids who came up through the academy that Gordon and, Edwards and Ward were looking over and fostering before the last change. I also think this summer could be awkward because you have the Olympics and you have the Euros, which means players will be coming back late, which is going to give a lot of eyeball time for these young players to impress Slot. And I could see Slot coming in and being like, I'm going to pick a player or two that absolutely blow their mind. Like, I'm going to pick Bradley, and he's going to start it right back. And Trent's going to find his job after the Euros. Like, I could see this manager making a big move, whether it's Kwanzaa starting at center back or whatever it is. Like, I could see him using this way to put his kind of strength, even if that big move is like they're going to start matches with the first team 11 through the end of the preseason to put pressure on some of these senior players that their jobs aren't guaranteed. And I think kids are going to get a chance. I really do believe that. And if you look at Feyenoord, he did a good job, just like Klopp, of playing young players. And I think it's part of the reason he was high on their list. Because Edward wants to play young players, always has.
Yeah, because I think it goes back to what Brian Shelton is saying. The purpose of the academy is to make money and get that 1 out of 100 gems. And to be able to get good money out of them, you got to get those opportunities for them to play and kind of like market themselves. Hey, here's another way we can tie this to Fenerbahce, by the way. As I watched an interview today for like an hour, Acun Ilıcalı, who owns Hull City, is actually on the board for Fenerbahce. He's a board member. Which, yeah, I don't know how appropriate that is, but it is what it is. So he was actually, I was watching an interview. It was more about Fenerbahce, but he was talking about Hull City and some of the young players they have. And he did mention Carvalho and, like Morton, in terms of like players they loaned that they would like to keep him and see if they can afford to sign them actually. Like to build a future and get promoted and stuff like that. So you never know. I know they have a winger that he's very high on. That's a bunch of clubs in the Premier League want to. I think the goal is to convert that money to purchase some of these guys they loan. Go ahead, Gal.
Tyler Morton, 22 million plus 15 pounds. Dude will be a star. That's what you need. You need Tyler Morton, but he needs to gain 15 to 20 pounds. That's the problem. Okay. That's the problem. We want 15 to 20 pounds.
I thought you were adding 15 pounds to the price, and I was like, that's not really sweetening the deal there. You did mention the Euros, so let's talk a little bit about that, because that's the only actual soccer coming our way. Bickler, you're a huge fan of international football, as we all know. How excited are you about the Euros?
You know what? I think the Euros, I actually think I like the Euros. I'm down with the Euros and the World Cups. I just don't do friendlies, all right? And I feel like 85% of internationals is just friendlies. But I guess I probably just don't pay enough attention in qualifying like I should. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Summer will be good. I think the Euros are always fun. I think there's always I don't know. I think the competition in a way, I think it's almost a little bit more intense than the World Cup. Where the World Cup feels more like a celebration of everybody in football coming together as one big party. The Euro feels a little bit more personal, like the tension in a bar before a bar fight breaks out. That's my place.
Yeah, you know what? I think it almost feels like it's weird that you mentioned that. I was going to ask you that too, Kelly, because it feels like, I don't know, because you have different styles of the game when you go to the World Cup. You have the South American teams, you have like the African teams and stuff like that. And not only, I mean, it's an event for them, and it's more like a showcase But those different styles make it different. Whereas the Euros are usually a lot more cagey. It feels more like old school European Cup games.
I think the Euros are. I think the European Championship is the greatest example of high level football in that we have left today. And I think part of it is let's be real here. This is the American guy who actually follows the shitty American team, right? I'm the one who gets angry about when they play poorly, except for I haven't paid attention because they have, a manager who isn't any good and stinks and is trying to set up a team to finish dead last at the Copa. I think that you allow too many bad teams into the World Cup. No bad teams get into the Euros. It is hard work to qualify for the Euros. Yes, there are groups and pots and luck of the draw that gets you into different groups, and maybe a Slovakia makes it in a 1 year every once in a while. A Turkey doesn't make it, right? And they're good enough to make it, but they don't because they were in a really hard qualifying division. Italy isn't in the fucking Euros, okay? Like, to me, that lets you know that, that is a team that could win the 2026 World Cup in the United States. And we don't even know who will be on the Italian team by then. But we know they might. We know we got a big picture of your face.
Yeah.
We know they might be able to win.
Italy is there, by the way. You threw me. You made me doubt it for a second.
Oh, no. I thought Italy wasn't in this one.
That was the World Cup they missed out on. The last one. I was like, that's what I was thinking, and then I had to zoom in on my face.
Wild, considering the fact they won the last one. That's wild.
But there are a lot. They won a World Cup.
Did they miss out on the Euro before this one? Is that what that was? I think.
No, because they were in the final of that Euro. I argued with Sir Z about it all morning in the final today against England. No, I think literally though, you look at this lineup like. There are teams that will sneak in every once in a while, like Iceland did a few years back, right? With the crazy Icelandic clap, and they got to the semifinals or the quarterfinals, whatever it was. But you look through these groups, where is there a layup? Maybe Albania, literally in that Croatia, Spain, Italy, they have no chance, right? You can cross Albania off. I apologize to the Albanian people listening to this podcast. You are not getting to
the actually stage. A lot more solid team than they used to. They used to be like the laughing stock. They were always dead last.
I'm just looking at this whole thing. This is they are in the toughest group, in my opinion. Group B might be the toughest group in this entire tournament. But outside of Group F, of course, because that top team, they are making.
No, Group D is a pain. You should see Matush complaining about it this morning.
Well, Poland's there, so it must be bad. But I genuinely think this is the greatest collection of football that we see every 4 years, every 8 years, every 6 years, whatever it is, when you play these big tournaments. I think the Euros, the way they play them, I know it's 4 years, people. It was a joke. I think the way they play them it's just so intense. I just wish they were a little bit more still centralized. I hate this 2-3 country hosting thing. I wish it was just and I know it's all in Germany this year, and they're calling for crazy rain during the whole tournament. They're gonna have monsoon season through Germany, so it's gonna be we're watching football in England, which will be awesome. But I think what happens in the Euros is it becomes special because you see all the great players and they're not afraid to compete, and the countries are so close to each other. The supporters are so intertwined. The World Cup comes and it's all about the pageantry and the stories. It's too much like the Olympics, in my opinion. The World Cup is too much like the Olympics, and I feel the Euros is like the Champions League on steroids every 4 years.
I think it's more of there's more like a feel-good thing when you watch a World Cup. You're like, oh, hey, look, it's the Japanese we're playing against, kind of a thing, where, as Shelton was saying, there is, because here's the thing, there is probably more rivalries, Bickler, because, you don't follow the group stages, but these countries have to, because they have to qualify. Not everybody plays Trinidad to qualify for the World Cup and stuff like that. So I think you have competed against these teams. So I feel like there's more of an established rivalry with different groups and stuff like that, as opposed to the World Cup, where it is more like a tourist experience. I mean, it's not. Obviously, these guys are still competitive, but I know what Gally's saying. It feels a lot more of a festive event when it's the World Cup, as opposed to the Euros, where it's more business.
Yeah, I mean, the World Cup's like what, the Disney equivalent of a soccer tournament on the international level, and I feel like the Euros is like, like I'm always just amazed at like these countries that like these players were 7 and grew up in these war-torn countries, and then they're going to go play another country that they just got done fighting against, like when they were kids. Like, I don't know what the rules on all that are, but it feels intense. Like in a way that's very non-MLS, if you know what I mean. Like I guess that's what I love about it, is that there's like a tension. There's a real palpable like tension in like these. It means so much to these countries to come in and win at that level. And I feel like it's one of the international competitions that really feels like there's a lot to lose by not winning.
Here's Bickler rooting for the Ukraine to take on Russia at next year's freaking Euros.
Let's go.
So let me ask you guys this then. Out of our boys, Gally, who are you really looking to kind of like follow and hope he does well? Like which player does this mean the most in terms of getting a good performance out? And which ones do you want coming back home as soon as possible?
First of all, I believe that the best player, or the player that will show the most at the Euros for as much as he's allowed to play, will be Szoboszlai, because the entire country's setup is built around his skills.
Yes.
That said, I think this is a huge tournament for Trent. And if anyone saw his stats today, and I know it was just a friendly against what was it,
Bosnia?
Yeah, Bosnia, right? His numbers were unreal, and I know he played in the midfield, which would just drive you crazy, Timuchin. But I think he had 90 completed passes, or 90% completed passes, like 15 key passes. Like every number was number 1 for England, and he scored a goal to boot. Like it was really good by him. I think the guy who has the chance to have the sneakiest inclusion is Gomez, because Southgate the other day said that if Shaw wasn't healthy, he believes Gomez might be his best option at left back. And to me, that lets you know that there's a reason he's in that side. It's not just to play. They didn't bring 2 Liverpool center backs in Kwanzaa and Gomez because they didn't think they brought different values. I think Kwanzaa will get dropped from the side because of his age, unless Maguire isn't healthy enough, and then he'll be the 4th, 5th center back. I think Trent plays a role, but it'll most likely be from the bench. So I think it's probably Trent with like a sidebar on Szoboszlai, because he just means so much to his country, but I don't think that's a surprise in any way.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I'm not against Trent playing midfield with a different system. I just did not want him playing midfield in the current system. Fair. So maybe things will change. I think, I mean, in terms of like, this also means, by the way, that England has to develop left backs, because if your second best option at left back is actually a right back who was playing out of position, that's kind of like scary.
Their first best option right now is Trippier, which is a right back playing out of position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, Luke Shaw is hurt, and he has been England's best left back for 5 years. To be fair, as much as we can shit on him as Liverpool guys, Luke Shaw has been a good left back for England in all of these big deep runs.
Yeah, I think he fits that system and that like the role he has over there. So, that'll be interesting, and I'll be very happy. I'm a huge Gomez fan, as you guys know. Bickler, who are you watching?
Ooh, I'm probably interested in a certain Georgian winger that we're probably not ever going to get, but would love to get. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. It's a lot of letters. It would be a phenomenal Scrabble poll if you were able to do it. I think the other one that I'm looking is Bakayoko for Belgium. I'd love to see that kid get some minutes to see what it looks like.
How about from our boys?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they utilize Trent. Accurate Galley says Hungary always kind of runs through Soboslai in a tournament.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll look great and we'll sell him for 150. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'll be curious to see. I mean, what happens with Harvey here, right? Like, does he get a snap here? It'd be really. I think that Harvey's like. We've always talked about his ceiling, right? But I think the fascinating thing with Harvey is that he's proven that his floor is way higher than we thought. So I'll be really curious to see if he can get some minutes. I think he could be a surprise impact player for England if they're able to give him some time and get him bedded in. Because I think he could catch. I think he's a player that could run real hot for them and could cause a lot of problems in the tournament.
Really? Because I actually thought he would not make the cuts, to be honest with you.
He didn't. He's not even in the squad. He's not even in the
Oh,
squad.
I thought he was.
already on, like, I was gonna say, I thought I saw a picture of him like
They
hanging out.
invited Jones. They invited Jones instead.
Oh, really? I thought he got in over Jones,
which is
Okay.
crazy.
No.
But I feel like the same thing about Jones, by the way. I feel like there's a lot of options there, so he might be sent back as like the emergency backup.
I agree.
Shelton is a good shot here. Gakpo would be a good one to watch because I think, like, I agree with you guys in terms of Szoboszlai. Even if he has a great tournament, I don't know if I'm gonna be. I mean, it might be good for him, but I don't think it's going to change my opinion very much because, the system is, and, he is the star of that team and everything will go through him and stuff like that. So I don't think I'm going to be able to look at that and kind of like forecast and project it to Liverpool. But Gakpo, in terms of how he plays, where he plays, and what he does, I'd be interested to see that because obviously he had a great tournament last time with Netherlands. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Prediction time as we wrap up over here as always. Who is winning the Euros? Mind you, we will have next Monday too, but we are hoping by then we will hear what Arne sounds like as a Liverpool manager. So we'll have a lot to talk about then. So figured get the Euros out of the way. I think it kicks off on the 14th, I think is the first game. But Gally, who is winning this thing?
So I'm going to
who is
pick
losing
England
to
over
Turkey in the finals?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to pick England over Turkey in the finals. No, I'm going to pick England over France in the finals, assuming somehow those two teams can find their way to the end. And listen, I understand why people shit on England. I understand why people question Southgate as a manager. We had the argument in Discord all afternoon on it. I personally believe they have the most skilled group in this division. You have England's player of the year in Phil Foden at his prime. You have a player who just went to Germany and became the player of the year in Harry Kane and broke records for scoring goals. You have Jude Bellingham, maybe the best player in the world and Spain's best player of the year. And as much as we all like to shit on Jordan Pickford, he wins big games and in big spots. He has big performances, has for England and for Everton over the last few years. I think England has the makings to win this tournament. It will take a few things to break their way, but I'm gonna throw my few shillings on England to win this.
Pickler, who you got?
I hate to do it because my feelings on the French, but I'm going to go on with France because much like tournament basketball is dictated by point guard play, I think tournament play at this level is dictated by your center back play. And I think they've got the best young center backs. I also think Dembele is just absolutely unworldly. I think that when you pair that, he's just a menace. And we haven't even touched on the rest of that team, which is just absolutely loaded. And I think that final, I think it's going to be France. I think there's going to be some sort of a dark horse that sneaks in there. I don't think it's going to be two heavyweights. Traditionally it used to be a team like Croatia that I would think dark horse their way in, but they're not much of a dark horse anymore. But also Modric is like 54, so I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if they can do what they normally do, but one of those Eastern Bloc sides I can see kind of sneaking in.
I don't know with like France over Spain in the final, actually. I don't know if like England in terms of, I feel like that easier group can come to bite him in the butt. At least on paper, it's like an easier group, but I'm going with France over Spain in the final. I agree with the reasons Bickler gave. I mean, I'll be happy if Turkey should get out of that group, and that would be a good result by itself. I think it's a very, very young team. Arda Güler has been playing a lot more, so that's always a good sign. Bunch of guys coming back, Hakan Çalhanoğlu and all that stuff. It's a good squad, man, but can they play together? We shall find out. It should be interesting. But hopefully by then, that tournament kicks off on the 14th, like I said. But hopefully by then, sometime this week, Arnie will get out and talk, and we'll have a lot more to talk about next week in terms of how things are looking moving ahead. I don't know how cryptic it will be. I don't know how forthcoming he will be. I guess we will find out. But until then, everybody have a great, great week. Don't forget to like, share, do all that good stuff. And then we'll see you guys next week. Take care.